I just did the minute. You'll have to say
Okay.
got it now. I just did the minutes and I sent it to you 2 hours ago. But
Okay.
you did say, Peter, you were going to edit again your strategic plan, and maybe you haven't, and therefore we don't. You're not going to talk about that today.
That's exactly right. I've gotten some input, not a whole lot this time, but I've also been pretty busy
Right.
with other things here. So I haven't done that. So I didn't put it on the agenda. So we'll
Oh.
put it on next time.
And then, so Tim, and you did say that you would extract a few pages or a few paragraphs from your Massachusetts document that you gave to your state to persuade them to make that safety commission.
So they would extract a few pages?
Well, you were going to, it's a 36-page document.
It's
right?
mostly pictures. It's not that long.
Well, anyway, but we had discussed at the last meeting how we could use some of those techniques and strategies that you developed for Massachusetts, whether they could be used in other places. And it struck us that if you could just take out the strategies and put them in a smaller brochure, that would be helpful for us to then use the brochure with our localities. And I'm sure you.
Or at
Okay,
least,
well,
at least give us the link right now.
the what?
The link.
The link,
No,
the
I
link
have
to the
sent-
dossier.
I sent you all the dossier,
We all have it.
and I
It was
told you,
sent-
and I sent you the page number to
Look
I
at.
mean, you know, the choices for cities and towns is all on one page. I don't have it in front of me.
The minutes,
But
the
I did
minutes
send you
tell
that.
you the pages. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
But if you want something else, I haven't done anything else about that.
That's
I
fine.
can do it for another time, but
Another time. Okay, that's the. Anyway, and
But
I
you
said
also, in terms of the agenda,
yeah. So they
uh,
don't need to be added to the agenda then.
I'll make a note. But there's also the terms of reference, right? That you
Yes, I sent
used as-
R3 out just now with the minutes based on the discussion we had at the last meeting. Where
So is that going on the agenda or?
Well, I didn't put that on because I didn't know whether we were going to have
right,
any more information about that.
it came through very late. I'm sorry.
But I think we're going to have enough of a full enough agenda, at least for the part of the meeting that I'm going to be able to be at. So maybe we should put that on next time,
Okay, it was a small revision.
because we're already 15 minutes in, and I want to get to these reports on the ban treaty activities, fairly promptly.
Okay.
So I sent out some materials about this, but some of you were actually doing that. I participated in a letter writing campaign. How many, and Judy did too, and who else did anybody else do that? Okay, Cheryl did,
And Ellen did too.
and Ellen did too. Okay,
The
great.
I
Well-
mean I wrote letters too.
And you did too. Okay, so do we have any kind of an indication yet as to whether that bore any fruit? Does anybody know anything about that? Because I
Well-
was very curious about how that was going to be measured.
So, right, I mean, that report that Sophia and Emma just sent us, that you forwarded, that very long description. I mean, they told us how many people said they'd done something. I think it was
Yeah.
85.
Uh-huh.
Who did that?
The two staff people for the collaborative.
They sent
I
a,
don't think I got something like that, but I don't
and
know.
then.
Well, you
Peter
should have got that
forwarded
from
it.
me yesterday or the
Peter
day before.
forwarded it.
Oh.
John
maybe
and I.
it's in my emails.
So,
Is that what- a
but
list of.
I think you can say that nothing appeared in the New York Times. I don't read the New York Times, so I can't speak to whether they actually talked about the final documents of the meeting of first states parties.
Not that
first
I
meeting.
saw.
Timon, did you see anything in the New York Times?
No.
No. I mean, that would be a disappointment, because it is it's a major treaty, a major UN meeting with declarations and clear statements, and apparently not a word in the New York Times, which of course is the one we had been targeting. Anybody else see it anywhere else?
Well, I usually watch the news hour, the PBS news hour, but I haven't been doing that as regularly. I've only done it, 2 or 3 times in the last week and a half. So I don't really know whether they
No,
covered
well,
it or not, but
the BBC, I watch the BBC half-hour news every night, and they didn't either. I'm looking at the BBC website every day. I don't see that.
Mm-mm.
which
Now,
is-
I wrote a letter to the editor of my local newspaper, and it was in printed, both online and the print versions, and it was regarding the nuclear ban treaty collaborative petition that went out, if you remember that,
Mhm.
urging readers to sign the statement. Do you remember that statement?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to read it to you. Okay, and most of my letter was the statement. I quoted it in full for the letter. And then the beginning was an introductory paragraph, in the end it said, please sign. Now I don't, of course, obviously, it was printed in both the local newspaper, both, as I say, online and print version. But I don't know how many people signed it, A. And B, I'd love to know, are they still getting signatures? Does anybody know? Because they said they were going to let it out on the 7th or do something with it on the 7th.
Yeah, it went out on the 7th with whoever, and there were organizations that endorsed it, and that you can go
I know
to.
that. But I'm saying, are they still getting signatures?
Well, it depends. Some people don't see those things till weeks later, and then they'll sign them. But
No, you're not hearing my question. Is
Yeah.
the group that put out the petition still wanting us to work on getting signatures? Maybe that's the way I mean to say it. Should I let all the people I know who might be interested, let their peace groups know about it type thing? Or is it? too
Well,
late?
I don't think it's relevant now. I mean, it was about
Okay,
getting
that's what I
people
was
to pay attention to the treaty meeting, which is over.
So that, because they let it out on the 7th, is gone. Well, it's a great, have you seen the petition? It talks more generally, doesn't just talk about the, oh, I've got it here.
right, no,
It says, we call on all nuclear armed states to take steps to engage in the treaty, to attend the first meeting of state parties, and sign, ratify, and implement the treaty.
right. So
These questions are things that are still going on. And we also call on the U.S. media to recognize the existence of the treaty on the proliferation of nuclear weapons, include the treaty in discussions, articles, and editorials regarding the nuclear threat and methods available to address it. That's still present.
Right, you can use the words, but of course, and modify it if you want. If you've got friends who can be signing some petitions like that. Personally, we did the June 7th in my branch in
That's
Palo
present.
Alto. We did an outdoor, in front of a federal building, press conference, and 3 of us read that statement. We got a woman from our Palo Alto Weekly, our big weekly newsletter, to come. She was only an intern, but she did a very thorough job. She phoned me later, she interviewed us, and she got an article on their online only weekly about the fact we were there, photographs, and what we were asking for. So
my guess is that was really for a particular time.
That's
They
what I'm
would
wondering. Okay.
Send
That's what I'm
those signatures of both individuals and organizations in. But if you are still using it, and you are collecting those signatures,
not.
then it's for information purpose, and the information there is still important for the general public to understand. But I think
some of the
signatures
words.
as such were,
This was the Nuclear Ban Treaty Collaboratives campaign.
it can be for your
I just
own.
don't know if they are continuing it. That was my only question, and I haven't heard of.
not with those
Fifth thing.
words,
But
because
it
they
sounds like no, they're not.
Well, as far as I understand, and I don't know, Peter, if there's been another meeting of the collaborative, but they hired 2 people to run this campaign for a very limited period of time. It ends
Okay.
tomorrow, or it ends this week or next week,
Okay.
and they're finishing up, what they were doing, and that was the campaign, around the 40th anniversary of the march
Right.
in New York, and the treaty meeting. And so that's, finished.
Okay, that's what I
Whether
wanted.
something else comes after that,
Perfect. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
think they did a fine job of
Oh, wonderful.
providing us with information and easy
Well,
instruction.
you're jumping ahead to item 5.
That ad that I sent out yesterday is all part of that too.
Yeah, we report. Mhm.
That was good.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. No, thank you. That answers my question. Okay.
So did any other people do something on June the 7th?
We had a
I did
program.
not.
We had a
Susan?
program on it,
Online, was it?
an online program with Sophia and Vicky and someone else.
Okay,
But people could sign, so
you did it ahead of time.
that
Yeah,
possibility.
right.
We have a news magazine called The Peace Worker, which is at peaceworker.org. And we've been publishing quite a few things about nuclear weapons and about the states parties things. So that's just ongoing. We keep trying to alert people to anything that's changing about on the nuclear weapons scene. So let's move on to the states parties. You were there, Tim?
Yeah.
Great. Tell us about it.
With, well, I don't know how much time you want to spend on this, but it was it was a whole week of programs, three different programs. The ICANN weekend, then there was the humanitarian consequences conference run by the Austrian government, and then there was the 3 days of the first meeting of states parties. And there were over 600 people from civil society at most of it. I mean, not everybody was there for all of it. There was, unfortunately, it was a super spreader event, and a lot of people were getting COVID and disappearing from the meeting partway through, which is, I mean, I didn't get it. I'm lucky, but it was very, very motivating and energizing, and it's lots and lots of enthusiasm for the treaty and for progress we're making. Three countries ratified the night before the start of it all, and we had 4 NATO countries and 2 prospective NATO countries in the room for the whole thing, and Australia, which was a big step. So and there were challenges and tensions and disagreements, and for me, one of the most interesting things that came out of it is actually what didn't come out, which is that there were lots of speeches all the way through, including from ICANN, condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but especially Putin's nuclear threats, and everybody was expecting the nuclear the final document to really sort of pin the blame on Russia for making these threats and highlighting that, and lots of countries and ICANN were pushing that, but it didn't end up in the final document. There's no mention of Russia. It just says we utterly condemn all threats of use of nuclear weapons, no matter where they come from and no matter what the circumstances, which was a very measured way to do it. I'm sure people in MAPA would be very happy.
Not all people.
Not all people. No, not all people. Everyone. I mean, it's a very it's a divisive issue. Within ICANN as well. But
Really?
I just found that really fascinating, the way that all happened, because it was really Cuba and 1 or 2 other countries that were just saying we can't go along with this, and they wanted to get everybody's agreement, so they backed off. So that was interesting.
So tell us, within ICANN, what would the 2 camps be within ICANN?
Well, ICANN,
The partner organizations?
yeah, I mean, the 2 camps are those that are very hostile to Russia and their invasion, and you know, every other sentence is, you know, Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. And the other camp is saying it's more complicated than that. You know, it's NATO provoked this, and, you know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from it. And, you know, Russia did, you know, broke international law. There's no doubt about that, in invading a sovereign country. But it's not simply, you know, that Russia's out to take over the world and we've got to, you know, we've got to arm ourselves and, you know, fight back, kind of thing.
When you say within ICANN, I think you're referring to the fact that there are, I don't know, 200 organizations that are
Well, there's
partners.
600. There's
600 organizations
no,
partners.
350, I think. 300.
A lot of organizations.
Yeah, a lot of organizations.
Partner, and amongst those organizations, there's these 2 points of view. But you don't mean that if I were to walk in ICANN's offices in Geneva, which I have, that I'm going to find people
Yes,
arguing about it actually at ICANN.
Yeah, you are.
I am. I might find people.
Beatrice Finn is very outspoken about you know, speaking out against Russia, and she's been that way all along. Right. And she's the head of ICANN. Not everybody in the staff, you know, agrees with that.
Okay.
And not all the partner organizations agree with that. So that's, you know.
Yeah.
But the same thing was happening with you know, among the countries as well. You know, it was the same division.
Were you allowed to go in the building where the actual official meeting was? Did you get?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I present. So there were very limited slots for NGOs to speak, but we could apply, and I did, and I got one slot to speak about national implementation. And I wrote 3 working papers for the conference. There were about 30 altogether from different NGOs, and I had, you know, a lot of the ICANN partners are very focused on the environmental remediation and victim assistance part of the treaty, which is, you know, links to affected communities and, you know, downwinders and all the rest of it. So there was a lot of contributions about that, but I wanted to talk about other things, including divestment and how the treaty is interpreted in different countries. And I quoted, I'm sure you've all heard this, you know, that Ireland's the only country so far that has passed national legislation implementing the treaty in a way that makes it a crime in Ireland to have anything to do with nuclear weapons, and they have a penalty of up to life in prison for violating that law, which is amazing, you know. And so I was quoting that and, you know, urging other countries to do the same thing. So yeah, we were all in the room. We were all in the room listening, and you know, this treaty is more NGO friendly than any other treaty in history. You know, I mean, they've really given us a lot of space and a lot of opportunities to be part of the whole thing. And ICANN is official. I don't know what the terms are, but, you know, ICANN has the same status as the ICRC in this treaty. You know, they have an official place at the table, and there's, you know, it's cool. And so, as I said, every agenda item, you know, countries, you know, obviously had the priority, and then observer countries like Germany, and then NGOs could also speak. So there, you know, we had like 2 slots for each of the main agenda items, and I got my 5 minutes of, you know, fame, which came at the wrong time. So we're going to go on to talk about the congressional press conference, but I was out of the room. My agenda item was supposed to be the following morning, and I was getting ready for that, and, you know, finalizing my statement and everything, and getting feedback from other people. And I was out of the room for the press conference, which was the day before. I walked into the room, and the facilitator said, will the distinguished representative from nuclearban.us please take the floor? So I didn't even have my computer out. I wasn't ready. I had to find, you know, you have to get a microphone and, you know, be set up. So anyway, so I did it, and a lot of people weren't there because they'd moved things out of order of the agenda, and we're sort of rushing.
The agenda changes. Well, yep. And did you get some applause at the end?
I did, actually, because I told a little joke. you know, I said, I was talking about the Ireland, you know, life in prison. And so I said, you know, we all know in this room that nuclear weapons are not an effective deterrent. But if I were the CEO of a company making nuclear weapons, I wouldn't want to be doing that in Ireland because, you know, to me, that is a deterrent. Life in prison. Anyway, so.
Okay, well done.
But I mean, you know, there was, and just to quickly talk about some of the other parts of it, because there was a meeting on the Monday of parliamentarians. We were trying desperately to get somebody from the US Congress there, and we failed. But there were parliamentarians from, I think, 30 different countries, including Canada. There was a senator from Canada. There was quite a few from Germany, and you know, all over Europe, actually, Italy, Spain, and so, and I was not allowed into that room. They only allowed. Sorry.
Mexico.
Yeah, well, Mexico is a big part of the treaty. Yeah, I mean, they're a major. But the parliamentarians, you know, had their own little meeting and agreed to set up a new network called Parliamentarians for the TPNW, which I'm going to try to get our members of Congress on board. And they did a statement at the end. So that was all good. Youth, there were loads of young people there. And I don't know how many of you know Christian Chibano.
Oh, he usually comes to this meeting.
He's usually at this meeting. Yeah. Well, he had 22 young people from, you know, the South Pacific and all these different places that I don't know how he got them, but I mean, they all, the young people also had their own little conference for part of one of the days. And just to end with the news that you may have heard that in the meeting, eight countries that have not yet ratified promised that they would do so as soon as possible, including Indonesia and Brazil, who are like
Brazil.
two of the largest countries in the world after, you know, US, Russia, and China.
Wow.
So
we're an increasing percentage of the world's population.
Yeah.
Somebody did quote the percentage in one of those documents.
Yeah, I think it's like a third. Well, I don't know about population, about the number of countries. It's
right.
I mean, it's more than a third.
Is also
well, I don't know about population because China and India take up quite a lot of the world's population.
Still, if you've got,
Tim, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I was reading or hearing, you know, this seemed to be like a headline that the U.S. boycotted that meeting. And was there any, just means that, you know, well, they didn't go, but was there any mention on this international level about the countries, naming the countries that, you know, of the nuclear armed nations that were not there?
No, I mean, you know, the original treaty negotiations, the U.S., you know, boycotted very publicly and got all their allies to boycott, most of them. This time they didn't, I mean, they weren't there, but they weren't boycotting it as such. I mean, there was no statement saying, you know, we're not there because we hate the TPNW. So, I mean, that's a good sign that the U.S. just stayed completely quiet about it. And they, you know, they had tried, I mean, they might have successfully prevented Japan from being there. Japan had MPs, you know, members of the Japanese Diet were there as part of the parliamentarians, but they didn't have an official Japanese presence. And that may have been because U.S. pressure. But obviously the U.S. didn't stop Germany and Netherlands and Belgium, especially. They all have U.S. nuclear weapons on their soil, and they didn't stop them from going. So, you know, I think, and I'm personally doing a lot of research on, and I've done research on the whole NATO, you know, the divisions among the different countries. You know, some of them outlaw nuclear weapons, you know, in their constitution. Some of them used to have U.S. nuclear weapons on their soil, and then they got rid of them, and they don't want them at the moment anyway. And, you know, others, you know, don't allow nuclear weapons in war, in peacetime, but, you know, it's not clear if there was a war whether they would take them. So they're all, you know, all the NATO countries have different positions on nuclear weapons. And I think this treaty, it's absolutely clear from the meeting in Vienna that there's going to be more and more divisions over the nuclear issue. Huge popular movements in Europe, want their countries to sign the treaty. Even countries that weren't there, like Spain and Italy, who are very important allies to the US, don't want nuclear weapons and have majorities in their parliaments calling for their governments to join the treaty. And as we were discussing about Australia, that's really big because they've been.
Tim, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Whether, and I guess the rest of you could chime in on this too. The U.S., you said, remained quiet and didn't try and convince other people not to go this time, as they did under the Trump administration. But I'm wondering if the word went out from the U.S. government in some form to the news media in the United States saying, don't cover this. Do you think that's a reasonable?
I don't know if it works like that, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible. It's possible. I don't know.
I know people think the US press is awful, but I don't think the government would have said that.
No, I think that would more likely backfire if they did, but I don't know. I don't know.
So going back to my question though,
Yeah.
was there any kind of statement during those days about the countries, the nuclear nations that were not signing on?
Well, I mean, the whole point of the treaty is to get rid of nuclear weapons, and everybody knows who has them. I mean, there's the 9 countries.
I mean,
and
no official, like we condemn these countries because they are not signing on. Was there anything like that?
Well, as I said, the final statement said we condemn all threats and use of nuclear weapons. I mean, and
But you name them.
No, didn't name countries. No. Okay. They're diplomats. They're.
We can name them. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you want to get.
But I mean, one of the main issues of this treaty that was discussed a lot is that the treaty outlaws deterrence. It outlaws the whole concept of having nuclear weapons, just in order to sort of stop another country from using them. That's a threat, and the threat is prohibited under the treaty. And there was lots and lots of discussion about, the German observer that was there, from the official observer from the government, said, we can't. We're part of NATO and we're part of the nuclear deterrence, and so we can't sign this treaty. And he was jumped on by so many people saying, you're just so out of touch and out of date. This whole, everybody else in the room, does not accept that stuff anymore.
Judy?
I think, in my opinion, deterrence has been examined or whatever by Russia, because they used the word deterrence, saying we are going to deter all of you nuclear powers from getting involved, or anybody from getting involved in our invasion of Ukraine. And if you get involved, we'll use nuclear weapons type of threat. So that's, to me, redefining deterrence right there.
Backfiring.
Interesting deterrence argument.
Right, and people are saying, talking about, well, if Ukraine if they had nuclear weapons, maybe Russia would not have.
But Russia had the control.
No.
Yeah, can we? I know that Peter has to leave soon. So should we?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we could hear from you about the conference, the press conference.
Yeah, did any of you watch it?
I did.
Yes, live. Yeah. I got up early to watch it.
I watched a replay.
Well, we're still trying to get a good quality video of it because the camera melted apparently partway through that they were videoing it on. But and again, that's, as far as I know, that's not got any press coverage. There were press there, and there were TV cameras and everything, but nothing's turned up.
Vicky, when I asked Vicky that question, she said there was no real press there.
No, she couldn't have said that. No.
She said there was something called Spectrum.
Yeah, Spectrum TV. But there were press there. I mean, I've seen the picture of the press part, the
Right, because we
facing.
couldn't see that. We
Right,
we
right.
were only getting to
No,
the
there were cameras and,
Oh,
but
oh.
but I mean, but it hasn't been shown anywhere. So I mean, they might as well have not been there if they didn't use it.
Mhm.
Well, this is why I'm wondering if there's some kind of blackout. Maybe it didn't come from the government, but
Well, it's
you know,
just, I think it's
this is big news. And you know,
yeah,
if it were big news that wasn't inimical to the U.S. policy, I'm sure it would be being covered. And so it seems to me highly suspicious that it's not being covered.
Yeah.
Covered where?
Well-
Here in our country?
I think there's too many things going on, unfortunately.
They
Yeah.
wouldn't cover it anyway, even if everybody else were. I thought that was the whole point. I don't understand what you're saying.
But
I'm not understanding your question, Judy.
It's not a question. You said that if there were press there, it would have been covered. Where do you mean it would have been covered? And how?
well, somebody would have published an article.
No, I'm saying that because that wasn't covered and because the state's party wasn't covered, you know, my mind is going to the idea that there's some sort of a cover up or blackout, not a
Yeah,
cover
well-
up, but a blackout in progress that's organized, because otherwise it seems like it would have been picked up.
Yeah, I'm afraid, I don't think that that's the case. I think, the
Happened
reality is,
before.
yeah. Sorry?
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they don't cover our stuff, they never have. And
Yeah.
maybe
They
they
don't-
did it, maybe they did it in the 80s, when there were millions of people, but we're briefly. But for a meeting in Vienna that no U.S. government went to, what's the news for the U.S. media? And for press conference with 5 members of Congress, I mean, it's not big, it's, I think. But anyway,
Right. They're looking to sell newspapers, remember, and to sell advertising. That's how they make their money. And so we weren't 46 dead migrants in the back of a lorry in Texas, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's the kind of thing sell their newspapers. So that's my cynical point of view.
yeah. So
Well, if you
in
look
terms of evaluating successes, I personally think it was great that we got 5 members of Congress to speak out and to actually, I didn't know, to be honest, after Ukraine, whether even Jim McGovern, who's our most active supporter, would still, say, the U.S. must sign this treaty and get rid of its nuclear weapons. But he did. And we got, I don't know if you noticed, but, we got a new person, Don Beyer, who has not signed on to anything so far of our stuff. He said the U.S. should sign the treaty. So, that's one new member of Congress, which brings us up to 18. But, we got a long way to go. And I never really expected that, the media would cover the TPNW meetings at Vienna, because it's not, like if Austria joins the treaty, that might make news. Or Germany, if Germany says the US has got to send their nuclear weapons back home, that's going to get in the newspaper.
I thought Austria was on.
Australia,
pardon me.
yeah.
Oh, and they're not on yet.
Not yet, but they've got a
They've got
sympathetic
a new
government.
Prime Minister. You see a new Prime Minister who in the past
he said he sent, didn't you send something out? Somebody sent something out.
I did,
tried to
yeah.
explain
Yeah,
it.
it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the news, keep reading the newspapers every day, you will see these things reported. That's all I can
As long as
say.
it's not our newspaper.
Well, that's why I watch the BBC News and watch
Yeah.
their website, because they cover every country in the world. They've got news about them.
Yeah.
They've got reporters in every country in the world.
Mhm.
Anyway, so, well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for making the effort to get there and getting your new passport. And
Yep.
that was a bit
Being so welcome there. My goodness, that's wonderful.
So, I mean, did Nuclear Ban US make some new friends? You said there were 600 NGOs.
Yeah, I made lots of new friends, including, I don't know if this means anything to all of you, but the Plowshares Fund, which is,
Yeah.
Emma Belcher was there,
Mhm.
and I spoke to her, and she's not been supporting the treaty. She doesn't support nuclear ban. I don't know if she supports MAPA or any of the other organizations, but they don't. They give out millions, literally millions, to nuclear, to the Arms Control Association and these
Well,
kind of
actually
groups.
give money to Code Pink and
They
Women
do.
That War. Yeah. If you
Okay,
go and
well, there
look
you
at
go.
that,
Okay.
yeah, the
Anyway,
100,000.
she said she's willing to have a meeting when I'm back in DC, so I'm going to follow up with that.
Oh, good.
I
Because
also
I
met
think
with the Arms Control Association guy, Daryl Kimball,
Daryl Kimball.
who again, has been very poo-pooing of the treaty, but he's changing his tune.
I've seen him. I've seen him talk. I've seen
Uh,
the progression.
I met with the guy that works for the elders, that Nelson Mandela set up, with Mary Robinson and people, and he was not supporting the treaty, but when he started, and now he is, and so he's, we were all piling onto him to convince the elders to join up. We had, we've got people like the Pope, but we don't have, a lot of these people that should be speaking out are still not. But yeah, I made lots of friends of an Icelandic member of parliament, a member of the Icelandic Parliament. I hung out with Bill Kidd, who I knew before, but because all the Scottish contingent came down with COVID, I spent a lot of time with the Scottish parliamentarian Bill Kidd, and there were a lot of Americans there from all kinds of other organizations I'd never heard of. There's a woman from Utah, who I think has maybe written some books, but she's Mary Dixon. Has anybody heard of her?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know her?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know her. I know of her.
Yeah.
Go off her.
Well, she was there, and do you know Cynthia Lazaroff from Hawaii?
Oh yes, most definitely.
She was there. She got COVID as well,
Oh,
but she had this amazing. Actually, this is something to share. I mean, if you know, and you need money from Plowshares for it, probably, because I don't know
she
how
got
much it
money from
costs.
Plowshares for her.
But
for
they
her
have
mental-
this virtual reality thing. Have you seen it, Cheryl? It's amazing. You put on these goggles, and it's about the false alarm in Hawaii.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
And you're there, and you look down, and it's got, your phone is in your hand with the message coming, oh, it's just amazing. You look all around and you see what's happening around you. It's
I know she'd done a film. I didn't realize it was in
it's a virtual reality thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
no,
may be,
Ann
I think
Ann
there's a
Wright
film.
was talking about that the other day. She was
Yeah.
fairly exercised about it. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to go, you guys.
Okay.
I really am hoping that you'll discuss the level of success and what kind of measures we could begin to devise to decide whether these tactics are successful or not. I'll listen to the rest of the recording, the rest of it. So Ellen, I hope you'll send that out. So thank you very much, folks.
yeah,
I
we'll
gotta
keep
run.
going. We'll
Okay.
keep
You, Peter. Goodness
Before you
gracious.
go, Peter, we talked about you coming to a meeting of the Nuclear Disarmament Coordinating Committee and giving your strategic,
plan.
this whole,
Oh, I'd love to do that.
yeah,
Can you
that-
send me an email about that?
yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Next meeting hasn't been set yet, I understand.
It's in the agenda.
You mean our next meeting, or which
No.
meeting?
Collaborative meeting, I meant.
The
Oh,
Nuclear Disarmament
There'll be
Coordinating Committee.
the coordinating
but-
committee is on the 30th, 10 o'clock Western time. And the
30th of June.
meeting that Susan's talking about, I don't know about that, but
That's different, yeah.
yeah. 30th of June, 10 o'clock in the morning for us. So got to run, you guys. I'm sorry to
Okay.
have a
Okay,
conflict,
thanks.
but I do.
Yeah, we'll keep talking here.
Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you.
Bye then.
So, what was Tim? You were saying something, Tim? Yeah,
So
so
who's taking over as facilitator then? Because I'm doing minutes.
I can do
Okay.
it. I can do it. So I still want to, regarding these people. So I went to the Plowshares Fund
Doodah?
fundraising thing at the Commonwealth Club in
Right.
San Francisco. I paid $250 for that privilege. And I managed to pin down the what do they call them, project manager, who was in charge of the Equity Risers proposals, the ones that, the 120 proposals, and a handful of them have been asked to submit a full proposal, and none of the ones that Wilf essentially submitted 5 proposals. None of them got any further. I didn't pin him down on that, but what we did learn is that they are now giving money specifically for efforts around Ukraine. Okay, they haven't made a big brouhaha about it, but if you have a project that definitely relates to helping people in Ukraine, peace people, then they're willing to consider it. And my fault, I have not yet told International Wealth about this. So, it was very interesting. So I cannot discern why Emma Belcher would be against the TPNW. I mean, it's
The the U.S. government is against the TPNW. The arms industry is against the TPNW,
yes.
and the big NGOs and the funders who fund them are all linked with the government and with the industry. That's the reality. Plowshares Fund, where do they get all their millions? They got to,
Well, they
once you're
got it
into
from
that,
the MacArthur Foundation.
well, where did the McCarthy get it from? They get it
well,
from investments in these companies.
Well,
That's where the money is.
in general.
We did not, we applied. Mass Peace Action had applied, but we didn't get it.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
applied. I've applied loads of times,
Yeah.
and I've talked to them. They don't. I mean, they fund ICANN. They funded part of this event in Vienna,
Mhm.
but they don't want to fund working
No.
to build support for the treaty in the U.S.
No.
They told me point blank.
Point blank.
They support no first use and other things like that, but not working on the treaty.
Well, of course.
Oh, what they didn't do, no first use. They didn't even support that.
In MAPA, but I mean loads of the ones down in Washington are doing no first use, and they get their money from plowshares. But
Right, yeah.
But not ground up, which is what
no, exactly. It's not ground up. It's high level.
So if you dig around on their website, Timon, you will find a list of previous donations.
Oh yeah, I've seen.
And that's where I saw Code Pink and Win Without War were 2 that I was not expecting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Code Pink got like 100,000 a couple of years ago.
The plowshares.
Yeah, out of the plowshares. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, well,
okay.
So I think, all right. So he wants us to talk about, right. So
Are we still on number 5, evaluating success?
I mean, what's the measure? There are different measures you can apply. Did we get any articles in New York Times? No. Did the CNN? I don't know if CNN covered it. You see, we sent comments to CNN and NPR. So did anybody hear anything on NPR? And did CNN ever do anything about it, about the first meeting, the meeting of First Conference? Anybody? See, I don't watch CNN, so I don't know. Anybody else got any feeling on that?
I'm pretty certain that they did not cover it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the states parties meeting was covered very widely by the Japanese media. They were all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And they, and I did an interview for Kuwaiti television, and there were lots of obscure countries with their media there, but not the U.S. or the internet. I mean, I guess CNN is kind of international, but
Okay, so
well, I guess if you don't have media there, then you don't have to show it.
We
just didn't have anybody there.
So what other, so that would be, but as far as energizing, you said for yourself, Timon, it was an energizing and inspiring event, a series of events. And I
Yes.
certainly, you know, I didn't, Austrian, I would try to be up at 2 a.m. to listen to some of the things that they were streaming, but 2 a.m. I had to go to bed. But it's all there. The recordings are there, and I managed to go back and see them. So as far as from my own opinion, as far as getting activists, happy because something is going on and countries are ratifying it, it certainly made me happier that something's going on. Anybody else feel that even if it's just a personal influence, that's worth it?
You know, that we had a webinar,
Yeah.
that we talked about it. It was a moment of, or a time to talk more about the TPNW.
How many people did you have? Were you satisfied with the number of people who attended?
Yeah. You know, it was done pretty quickly.
Well, I think the webinar was great, and there were a good number there, 60 or something, but it was also, I think, mostly the same people that come to all these things. And that's the same with, who was heard about the Vienna meeting or who watched the press conference. It's all the same people. And I think that's where we really have to be honest with ourselves, in terms of effectiveness or evaluating our success. We're not where we need to be in terms of reaching new people, getting, we got 18 members of Congress out of 535. That's not where we need to be. It's 18 better than 0, but it's a long way from where we need to be. And, the countries are coming on board internationally, but, the conversation is not yet shifting in this country. And that's what we got to be. That's in my opinion. But
I agree. I go to the gym 3 times a week, and I have gym friends, and one of them said, I really like your articles in the paper on the TPNW. And the last one was about the petition. I said, did you sign the petition? She says, no. She liked it, but she didn't sign. And I was so shocked when she said that, but I didn't want to, say, why you stupid? I said, oh, okay. But I have a feeling, you almost feel like you're hitting your head against a stone wall. People might say, gee, that's a good idea, but they don't get out and sign. And maybe there's fear of signing. I don't know. We do have the McCarthy era in the 50s that shapes our nation, I swear, as far as getting active and doing things.
Truly.
It still haunts us, even though it's a long time ago.
And I think the whole involvement, the national involvement with Ukraine has, on the one hand, it's made people fearful about the use of nuclear weapons, but it's also, on the other hand, in a weird way, made them feel like we need to have them to retaliate or to win against Putin.
Don't understand your point. What do you mean?
She's saying people out there are
people out there that they're feeling. Yeah, they're feeling, on the one hand, and it's sort of a little crazy because they're afraid of nuclear war, but they're also saying, yes, but we need to send more weapons. This is not the time.
To Ukraine, I see.
Really, in reality, on nuclear weapons, because we need to beat Russia and we need to support the Ukrainians against Russia. So,
But I
for
think they're
me,
two separate issues.
yeah, but I guess I'm just throwing in that the national
Attention.
attention
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Ukraine has had this sort of double standard kind of feel about it. I don't know. What do you
Right.
think?
So I think, are there not, there's been some national polls that somebody's done that says more people are worried about nuclear weapons than they were maybe
Yeah.
8 months ago.
Sure.
We were hoping we might be able to turn that worry into some action or support, but you know, how to measure that is difficult to know.
Exactly.
So are people, you know, one way non-profit, well, activist organizations measure their success is to say, well, we are raising more money this month than we did a year ago, right? So I don't, because I'm not looking at the wealth income, but Ellen, sometimes you attend some board meetings and things that maybe they talk about income. Ellen, do you have any idea? Are we is Wolf getting more donations now than it did a year ago?
Well, we got some bequests.
But that was because people died,
Yeah.
right? The issue is, has the extra fear of nuclear weapons and a problem in Ukraine
I don't know.
led to more money coming in?
Jan Quarterman could answer that question.
Answer that right, but we were asked to consider measures of success, and I'm just remembering that some organizations would measure their success of their programs by the fact they've raised more money for them. So Tim, do you have a donation button on your?
Yeah, we're not getting more money. No. And just to move on to the next item, or to combine, as a segue.
Yes.
For me, one of the things that I love about ICANN is that the strategy was to work one at a time, building a movement, with one organization, and then we get another one on board. We start with one diplomat, and then we get another diplomat, and then we get another one. We get one country to sign the treaty, then we get another one, then we get another one. It's like, and it's measurable and it's very visible, and you can see, we've got 65 countries ratified the treaty. Tomorrow it'll be 66. Next it'll be. So I want to translate that into how we build our movement here in the U.S. We've already got, as I said, 18 members of Congress, and we're going to get 19, we're going to get 20, we're going to get 21. That's a way of building support and being visible. Same with cities, who've signed past resolutions or whatever. But, the more we can do to visibly build this and get more and more people on board, that's to me is the most important thing. And the other stuff is I'm less convinced about.
Okay.
Well, you're doing a good job, Tim, and you and Vicky have done a wonderful job.
Thanks. I mean, lots of people are working on this. We're working on the state bill in Massachusetts, and we're doing the exact same thing. We're going one at a time to get members of the state house to support our bill. We've got right now 17 state senators. We need 25 for it to be a majority to vote, or 20 or something, 20 something. So we're going after them one after time, and to get one, we have to find constituents willing to talk to their member of the state house. So we're trying to, one at a time, we find people willing to make a phone call or write a letter, be on a Zoom call. It's a hard slog. And that's the only way we're going to get any of this done, in my opinion. And it's the same with the media, to be honest. Putting out letters, or petitions calling on the New York Times to cover this is not going to get us anywhere. We have to find a journalist. We have to find one journalist, and then who wants to work with us, and then we got to find another one, and one at a time. It's a hard work, and I can't stress enough, that there's no shortcut, in my opinion, and the more we just get down to it and start, if we want to get media coverage, there might be a conspiracy out there. I don't think so. I think it's our own failure that we don't get media coverage, because we're not doing the work to build the relationship with journalists. I don't know if any of you have good relations with anybody, but I mean, you need a journalist who you can ring up on your mobile phone and say, we've got this event. How can we best get it covered? What would you like from us? That would give you a story. That's the kind of relationship you have to have with a journalist to get anything. Unless you're big, which we're not. We're not big.
So I would like to ask, I live in a rural area in the mountains of North Carolina with very disappointing politicians. And I haven't been able to find people in my neighborhood that are even interested in hearing what I have to say. And I think there are a lot of people who have that problem, that feel isolated where they're living. And of course, that's why we get together with each other on Zoom. But I'd like to see if we can figure out a way to encourage people to do something that will be effective, that are living in place, when you don't live in a big city and you don't have access to your representatives and senators.
Okay, so just taking the cynic point of view, Ellen, those of us who do live in metropolitan areas suffer from, there's so many issues that people are working on, that to find somebody who isn't already busy with the Sierra Club or Planned Parenthood or Greenpeace or the Humane Society, it's actually quite difficult. So between, you have very few people, we have lots of people, but they're already occupied on their own issues. So
I mean, when I was in DC, I did everything I could and was successful, but that's a place where I could be successful.
right.
Well, I don't know if it's comparable at all, but just to say that in Massachusetts, in Western Massachusetts, where we were before, there's lots of very small isolated towns. I mean, it is Massachusetts and not, South Carolina or whatever, but they have town meetings of the whole town. There's like, some towns have 30 people, sometimes there's 300, but I mean, they're small. They meet once a year, and anybody can propose something. You get so many signatures, and you can put it on the agenda. And we had a whole campaign. This was a few years ago, to get on the agenda and get people talking about the treaty, and we had loads of success from that. As I said, it's Massachusetts, but it's still small rural communities, farming communities, people who don't, who are not into politics as such. But if you start talking about nuclear weapons and the world, what kind of world do you want to live in, and people, sometimes you can surprise yourself. I don't know if that would work for you, but that's an example.
Do you have town hall meetings, Ellen, in near you?
Not like Massachusetts. But, what we did was a voter initiative in DC, and that was very useful, very, but not everybody has the ability to have a voter initiative.
Right. Well, if you want to put something on the ballot here in California, you're gonna have millions of dollars to spend on it, and you've got to get an enormous number of signatures to qualify for the ballot.
I'm working on the local UU though. They're interested, so.
The
Oh,
university
let's see. You
right,
can start there.
yeah, using faith communities
Mm.
seems to be a possible strategy.
Yeah,
Faith
we were-
communities, Rotary clubs,
Yep.
all
Yeah.
kinds of groups.
Yeah, maybe I should join the Rotary Club.
It's not
even
cheap,
you don't have
Ellen.
to join. You can just go and say that you would like to talk about this. There are Rotary members who can.
Is there information out there of how many Rotary clubs have signed on? Because I hear that that's true. They're tending to support the TPNW.
Well,
What?
The Rotary clubs,
What
is
about
a-
them?
aren't they some of them in support of the TPNW?
There is a subsection of the Rotary Club called the Peace
Rag.
RAG, yes.
Yeah.
And so they have formed a subgroup, and this is Anne Frisch and Asha, who used to work for Nuclear Ban US. She's a Rotary Club person.
Okay.
And so, they have been working with to get more visibility for the TPNW. And as you'll read in my minutes, they managed to get the Rotary Club Foundation to divest from nuclear weapons companies for their assets. That's the foundation part of the Rotary Club.
I'm not that familiar with the Rotary Club makeup.
No, nor am I, but I'm just saying, if you read the minutes,
Mm.
that's what we heard last time, was that. So, and the Rotary Club is
I mean, is it worth it? Like there's a Rotary Club in Davis. Should I contact them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well,
say,
and
say,
contact
What?
Anne, and
contact what?
contact Anne Frisch, and she can
know.
guide you through how to contact your Rotary Club and how you can get that on their docket.
Do you have contact information?
Yeah, I'm putting it in the chat right now.
What?
I'm putting it in the chat, her email address.
And now last time I corresponded with her about 3 days ago, she was in Germany.
Anne Frisch says okay, I got you.
Having been, she attended. Did Asha come all the way to Vienna,
No,
Timon?
no.
No.
Yeah. Also, Ira Helfand is on that.
Well, Francis Jeffries is
And Francis
one.
Jeffries, right.
the most-
So, they're going to hopefully do a training to it will go out to everybody on the Mass Peace Action list if they would like to join a 2-part training on contacting both their town and city governance to do back from the brink resolutions, and also how to talk with their local Rotary people.
Okay, so that's good. So when
That's
we had Francis on our disarm committee meeting 2
Great.
days ago,
Yeah.
so she could report because she was in Vienna.
Yeah.
But I don't think she mentioned a training. So
No.
this is good. So will we hear about this?
There's also
Before we get off the subject, Tim, can I say that you're the one who gave me her name and number, etc.?
And Frisch, yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Then also we did, it is just here in Massachusetts, there was a good webinar with Ira Helfand and the Archbishop of
Yeah, New Mexico.
whatever his name is. And that was for faith communities. And so we're trying to think of trying to get a hold of other faith communities around Massachusetts and showing that webinar, and have somebody from there, from that faith community, maybe welcome everybody, or, do something in the beginning. But that webinar is already there. Although I must admit, having looked at that Archbishop, and I'm forgetting his name,
Newell or something.
did not give a very strong anti-nuclear stance. It was
Archbishop Wester.
Wester, right. He was good, but it was about affected communities, and that's very important.
He has said that people should not work in the arms factories down there, the nuclear weapons factories, but maybe he didn't say that on the video.
But that video is there, and it's open for people to use if they want to. I mean, we can send you the link to it, and it can be used with any faith community if they're interested in showing it, and then make it their own.
But his speech was written out. I mean, he's made a written statement, which I read, which I thought was pretty good.
The statement was great. Yeah, the statement was great. On the webinar, as he was talking, it was a little bit more low key, but it was a good program, and it's there for people to use if they want to use it.
And so when you say there, are you going to give us a link? So this is like, we're into new L&L collaboration ideas now. By the way, if you can keep track, new ideas. Right. So I want to point out that Timon sent us the nuclear free zone list of over 260 odd localities throughout the US and a few abroad, which over several decades ago declared themselves to be nuclear free zones. And at our last meeting, Timon explained that what the next step is, if you're living in one of those, you want to make sure that somehow the city council, of whichever entity it was who declared the nuclear free zone, now follow through by having those forms that anybody wishing to do a contract with the city has to sign a form that says, we promise we're not working for any other organization that has anything to do with nuclear weapons, right? And so a city can say, yes, we want you to put in the new toilets at the recreation area, but you got to sign this form first that says you're not doing any work like that for Lockheed Martin down the street. So anyway, that was a strategy, right, Timon?
Well, I think the first step is if people live in one of the places that was a nuclear free zone in the 80s, is to find out whether there's still, that laws or the resolutions are still valid or still in existence, and if they are not, to try to start a conversation about doing it again, and if they are, seeing about moving forward with the other follow through. And the first thing that we were working on was even places like Berkeley, California, which had a really strong nuclear free zone and still has it. We got them to actually put it in the context of the treaty, because it gives it so much more weight to say, we're prohibiting these activities and we're refusing to have investments and all the rest of it because there's a treaty that prohibits this, and we want to support it. It's not that the U.S. has to comply with that treaty legally because it hasn't signed it, but as Berkeley, California, we want to show our solidarity with the rest of the world and be part of that treaty and have our prohibitions based on that. So, you know,
That's what we've
that
done.
that was our goal. But
revision.
That's exactly what we did in Davis.
in Davis, okay.
Yeah.
So,
We are
so
on the-
now,
we are-
I mean, because
We're
that
on
was
the
like,
ICANN list. Pardon?
so 30 years ago, these nuclear-free zones were declared. And in
Yep.
the meantime, we've got this new treaty. So really, you have to go back and revise your statement a little bit, as Tim and
Or expand it, you could say.
Right. expand it to say, and now, you know, we want to make sure that our area. So, so the question is, can you find people in your groups who are willing to work on this?
We did.
Yeah, you did. I know my branch.
Can you have you written that up, Judy, anywhere? It'd
Yeah,
be great to have.
it's on your our website, or whatever we call it. You can get the Davis resolution, I think, just by going to whatever place.
No, but can you? But you said that they recently added the TPNW and got onto the ICANN list and so on. It'd be great if you were involved in that. You know, could you write that up as a story for other people to be inspired about what they can do?
Tried to do that with the rest of the cities in our county, and got a positive response only from one person in one county, and she has not really moved on it yet.
But what I'm asking though is that you write the story so that you can share it with other people. We could spread it around. The story about how you did it. You know, how you got Davis on board.
That boy, I don't know. I never wrote up the story. We just got the resolution passed and tried to move on. Not writing on how we did it.
Right.
It was.
Were you working with Nancy Price?
Yes. I mean, she was one of the people in our group at that
Right.
point.
So Nancy is very good at writing things, and
but she did not write the resolution. I did that.
Right. But she's very good at reporting on things. She's in our disarm committee, and so.
So you'll ask her, Cheryl?
I can see. I know she's preparing now for our international congress. Wilfis has an international congress in a couple of weeks, coming out of Australia, but it's all on Zoom. So we have to get up at some ungodly hours because it's on Western Australia time. Anyway, so she may have already told us about it. Anyway, so let me just I'll make a note to myself too.
As to what the city council did.
Yeah, and whether
it was a couple of years ago.
It was some years ago, so it doesn't actually mention the TPNW to my knowledge.
The resolution does.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Good. Oh, yes.
Okay, fine.
You know,
because we support the resolution because we were a nuclear-free city, and we are a nuclear-free city.
Okay.
So that's where we took it from. We said, look, we're a nuclear-free city. It makes sense for you to support this. And every single member of the city council agreed.
So there you are. There's the basis of your story.
Yeah, that's the story.
You know, then you just embellish it with what you did, how you went about doing it. Like you're telling a story.
I would think that'd be a rather boring story.
No, it's not boring at all. People want to know.
No,
it's exciting. In other words, is the fact that they passed this great resolution.
Yeah, I mean, people want to know, like, how did we go about in the city of Newton? How did we go about passing the back from the brink resolution?
What would I be writing?
And it was a process, and so in that is a story of how we went about doing it, but it's a story.
Have you written that up, Susan?
I'm not a writer.
Oh, come on.
I'm not.
Can you find somebody else to write it up?
I mean, there's more than one of you working on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, this is true. Just telling stories is a very common strategy for.
Where would you take your story to? Say I wrote it up.
Right. Well, then we could post it.
Well, we have them all on our website, and they can go.
Our resolution is on our website.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
story.
but it's not just the resolution, it's the story of how you got it. That people want to
Nobody
know.
had mentioned that to me before. Nobody has said, write the story. Huh.
Right, well, we're suggesting it now.
Yeah, I gather.
Yeah,
I
well,
will think
that's a part of the training that we're doing, the 2-part training, is that
Okay.
some people will talk about how we went about doing it. What were the steps that we
interesting.
took.
No, nobody mentioned
So I
that.
can tell it. I just can't remember.
Okay. Are we going to finish in 5 minutes or?
We are.
Yeah,
because
I
that's
really
gonna
have to
make
go.
over.
I have to go.
Yeah.
So that's number 6. I think we covered it.
I think we've
Okay,
got
well, I will try and see what time I can give to that kind of project.
okay, thank you.
Hmm.
All right, so next item is announcements. Has anybody got anything new? Well, Susan, you've mentioned this training and you're going to
Well, yeah,
Tell us
it's for a Mass Peace Action
only pass peace
members.
action. Ah.
Also in Massachusetts, we are joining with we have a Raytheon campaign, and the Nuclear Disarmament Working Group is going to be joining with the Raytheon campaign, and we will have a new campaign that comes out of it. So it's just then focusing on Raytheon's involvement in making nuclear weapons, or its involvement in nuclear weapons. Because so far the Raytheon campaign has been focused on Yemen and the weapons that it sells to Saudi Arabia. So
Right.
this is a departure for them to then focus on nuclear weapons. And then, of course, the commission, the Nuclear Commission bill, which we've talked about, which is very big, and the dossier that was written, which no matter what happens with that bill, is a wonderful document for use
Yes.
for Massachusetts. Any work on nuclear
Anyway,
weapons.
right. The all right. So Ellen, do we have anything in particular we wanted to say? I mean, we have internal to Wilf quite a lot of things going on, and we're working with the Peace in Ukraine people.
Who's it? Eileen Karkowski.
Yes.
Right, has this little thing that I think I mentioned this last time. It's a little flyer that she has, and she goes great going up to people on the street and saying, do you want to end the war in Ukraine? Or here's a way you can end the war in Ukraine.
Right, well, that's what I did on
right. And then there's that
Saturday,
QR code for Wilf.
Right, I did that. I tabled, as they said, at our farmers market on Saturday for 2 hours, handing out those flyers.
So it's made its way to Newton.
Good. No, Eileen she's becoming our expert on laws, the autonomous weapons, and just beyond drones, but autonomous weapons that will really like little robots that walk around and shoot people. So she's just written an article which is just published in our Peace and Freedom magazine that's about to end up in our doors. So you'll be getting that, Tim, and you and Vicky will receive a Peace and Freedom magazine hard copy.
I will drop the link to the PDF in the chat.
Right, the electronic version.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right, so NPT. So just to say that I'm registered to attend the NPT review conference in New York City. I'm trying to gather a few other Wilfers to go with me, and I may try to be there on the 5th of August, which is when we get 3 hours to talk to the main assembly of the diplomats. Timon was saying it was much more generous at Vienna. You had several opportunities to speak, right? But the
So August 5th is just one session.
3 o'clock till 6 o'clock is what we were told. I've been waiting for Alison Pitlack and Ray Atchison to get back from Vienna because they were too busy working on the first States Parties meeting. And now that's over. I'm hoping they're going to turn their attention to the MPT. There are already quite a few side events showing up in the Reaching Critical Will list of side events. This
Well,
meeting
I
goes
may
on-
see you there, but
goes-
I got to go in 1 minute. So
Yes, all right. Well, thank you. And so next meeting, July the 26th, is you'll see it there in the agenda. It's a Tuesday. I shall be back from Hawaii and available, I think. So anybody else got
I'm gonna try and save the chat.
input? Yes.
Save the chat.
Save the chat. It's really,
Click on the Peace and Freedom, it'll pop right up, and her article is on page 6.
right.
Okay.
So thank you very much, everybody. Susan, looked like you had something else to say.
No, just, you know, at our last, in Massachusetts, in Napa, we realized that we've got to get busy on Hiroshima and Nagasaki
Lucky days.
activities, which we haven't.
Right.
But
No.
it has to happen soon.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there is one thing I'd like to say. The Golden Rule, which was planning on doing a 10,000-mile trip around the United States next year and this year and next, they've lost their insurance and they're
Yeah.
having a hard time finding somebody that will insure the boat. And if they don't get insurance, they won't be able to moor because the marinas won't take them. So if anybody's got any ideas about where they might get some insurance, that would be helpful.
This is the yacht that was around Hawaii a couple of years ago, has come back from Hawaii, and it usually goes up and down the West Coast talking about nuclear weapons and the need to abolish it. They do, you know, public presentations on land, and you can pay a little bit of money to have a sail on the boat called the Golden Rule. And they were going to take it up the Mississippi and all around the rivers of the East Coast. And that's the first I heard that they lost their insurance.
Yeah, this just
okay,
happened.
I have to go. If
Thank
if anything else comes up
No,
for the
no,
minutes, just let me know.
I
And
think say we adjourned at
I'll add
4:30.
it.
Okay, you all, see you all next.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, then. Thanks.
Ellen
Yep.
will tell you the recording place.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. So, okay. Thank you, Ellen.